So Maggie, just right out of the gate. And by the way, I feel like we're talking like we know each other. That we've just met in the last minute and a half, but so we don't know anything about Maggie. We know all of your. We know all that you've done. You're one of the world's most, I don't know, impressive, magical. You're so good that you make everybody feel so bad. By the way, we're gonna tackle that because I feel like we should all be doing more like Maggie. But I'm gonna start with this. Favorite song to sing. To sing.
To sing?
Yeah.
Definitely Encanto right now.
Encanto?
Is that
who is that? Is that
Well, it's the latest Disney. Everyone who has a toddler right now will understand that this is the latest Disney movie.
Oh, we did have that on the other day. My youngest is 6. So we still have Disney going on. But yeah, Encanto is the new Disney. It's on, I don't know where, I guess Disney Plus, right?
It's everywhere. Actually, their album in the first week that it came out surpassed every song ever made or something.
If you're not singing Encanto, you should be. Okay, next. Favorite core pursuit, which we refer to core pursuit. Hobby, it's basically a hobby on steroids. And it really could be anything that is not, let's say, not work, though, except for work.
I'm still going to go with writing.
Okay. Oh, you love it. You love writing that much. You do love it.
I journal and I write, and it's how I process and, how I remember things.
Okay. Favorite instrument? Either to listen to or to play?
My daughter on the drums.
Oh, yeah? Cool. Okay. Which daughter? Don't you have a lot of daughters?
I have a lot. So our biological daughter, Ruby, is learning how to play drums right now, and it's really fun.
How old is Ruby?
She's 4.
She's 4. Okay.
Yeah.
You've got her on doing some. She's out there banging on some sort of drum set.
She's out there rocking it.
That's awesome. All right, how about your favorite? I would ask you your favorite book of yours, but this is your first book. So your favorite other book besides your own book?
Cheryl Strayed, Tiny Beautiful Things.
Tiny Beautiful Things. Favorite athlete or team or I don't know, Tom Brady, Michael Jordan, or team, or any sport?
The U.S. women's soccer team all the way.
Boom. Done. I love that.
That's easy.
That's a good one. No, that's a good one. Favorite place you've ever traveled in Michigan?
Michigan?
Yeah.
I've never been to Michigan.
That's why I asked the question. Okay. You've never been to Michigan. Okay. All right. Favorite place in the United States? Nobody ever goes to Michigan. People kind of you're a world traveler. Michigan's oh, why would you go to Michigan? Well, it's kind of an underrated state. So that's why I always ask that question. Okay. It's really beautiful, but most people think of it as Detroit and cold, and it's really actually very nice and beautiful. How about U.S.? Favorite U.S. spot?
I'm from New Jersey. I'm a Jersey girl, born and raised through and through New Jersey.
And then how about in the world though? Favorite place on the globe? Nepal.
Easy.
Okay. I've never been, but I know we're going to be talking about Nepal, and that's it. 7 questions with Maggie, and I feel like I know you a little bit better.
I like that.
See, now we can start. Now we can dig into the world that you've created. So you did a gap year, and then you ended up launching a nonprofit. And now you essentially adopted 52 children. Can you in Nepal? Can you just take us through that incredible human story as we try to help? So, by the way, Retire Sooner podcast. We have this our listener base. Even though there's a money angle to the show, and that's maybe a third of what we talk about, and try to figure out a way to get financially so you can travel whenever you want, and you can get to a point where you get to a profession that you do love, because a lot of people aren't able to do that because they have to kind of make money to survive and live in the world. But so that is kind of our overarching angle. And one of the really important pieces of the equation here for people that retire early is they have to have some sort of purpose after they stop really working, and that's hard for a lot of people. And you have done this in such an amazing form. That's why we wanted to talk to you. So tell us this story just a little bit about how you ended up in Nepal, and then how you ended up with the where you are today.
Yeah, so I grew up in New Jersey in the suburbs, a small, beautiful, quaint little town. I had a mom and a dad and two sisters, and lived on a cul-de-sac, went to New Jersey public schools. I, at the very last moment, was like, how am I supposed to go to college? I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what I want to be. I don't know my purpose. And just kind of started to question that narrative of like going to college equaling finding your destiny and the path to success. Mm-hmm. I was just like, I want to kind of know more about myself first. I still wanted and intended to go to college. But that was kind of the first step of just stepping off that beaten track and being like, whoa, wait, first I want to like go travel. So I go to travel.
Prior to school, had you already gotten into school, by the way?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'd gotten into great colleges, great universities. I had lots of options, but I was just like, before I go spend, it's like hundreds of thousands of dollars now.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what I want to study yet. We kind of do college in reverse, in my opinion. Like, I think we should intern and apprentice and travel and find ourselves and figure out what makes us excited. And some people really do know that. I think they're 17, 18 years old and they know they want to go pre-med or exactly what they want to study. But a lot of us, when you're 17, you just don't know.
Maggie, I have thought, I've tried to articulate that too, as the thought around the whole process in the United States of getting into college is I guess to some extent we don't underestimate it, but we do end up by chance. So you apply to like 10 schools and you end up getting in wherever. And then that has such a massive life trajectory. It just puts you on a path. It might be if you end up moving somewhere, or you end up in a different region of the United States, you end up that school because you got into it, you end up in some sort of study. You're right. It's such a heavy, important decision to just randomly choose out of a hat when you're 17, 18, you have totally clueless around the world. You're right. I always think that we make such a massive decision really so uninformed because we're just so young. You're right. It's almost should be in reverse. Yeah.
And also then you graduate and maybe you've figured it out along the way, but you've got $250,000 to $500,000 of debt.
Yeah.
And that in a way, like this is a financial podcast, so we can talk about that. It kind of like puts you again in this pressure cooker. So you're in this pressure cooker of like the right SAT scores. And again, I'm a product of privilege. So the right SAT scores and the right classes and the right resume and the right, process to get into the best school with the best name. And then maybe you get there and then you accrue all the debt and then you better get the best job so that you can be in the best this, so that you can pay off the debt. So then you finally can do what you want to do. Anyway, I was just like, I started to question that, which was really lucky of me to like be like, wait a second, I'm going to travel. But I didn't travel to go like change the world or like do anything good or special. I just traveled for travel for the sake of fun. And this one time in my life where I could have a year to explore that part of me. So the first semester was just like surfing and scuba diving and learning how to meditate with Buddhist monks and organic farming and, cultural immersive type of things. And then that was that. For the second.
So what area though? So when you did this plan to go, you had already planned to go away for an entire year. Mm-hmm. And was it all where were the places you were going to go? Or is it one place?
So the initial trip was one of those like 18 to 19-year-old kids with backpacks, going on a semester abroad. And I went to the South Pacific.
Okay.
And then the second part of that semester, I had to choose an internship. And a friend and I chose an internship in northeastern India.
Okay. Now, so you went south. Where in the South Pacific did you go first?
Fiji, Australia, and New Zealand.
Okay. Amazing.
It was amazing. I mean, once in a lifetime trip for sure. It opened up my eyes. It made me come alive. It just got me really passionate about learning. And, when you're a kid from New Jersey, that's all you know. This is also
Yeah.
before the time of, smartphones. It's before it was a different time in that sense too. I think kids of today have a lot more exposure, but I was from New Jersey. All I knew was my town and that I had to go to college. So then
So
I end up
you did South Pacific, and then you went to India.
yeah. So I end up in northeastern India. And I end up like we were working in a cafe, but the cafe indirectly served children. And then I got to know these children, and it ended up that I had kind of landed in a Nepali refugee community and was working as part of this organization. And I start to kind of follow the news and the events and meet Nepali people. And the Nepali refugee and migrant community are sleeping under tarps, under pieces of plastic
Yeah.
by the side of the road. They're doing menial labor. They're, at the very best, working to survive, at the very worst, getting into human trafficking situations and being exploited. And, migrants, it's the bottom billion of the world, like just struggling to survive. And I started to kind of question, where are these folks coming from? Like, why are they leaving Nepal? At the time, I couldn't have even put Nepal on a map. And then I started to meet Nepali friends my age who had escaped, civil war and their rural Himalayan villages to try to make a life in India and try to find education and safety. And so that's kind of my entryway to Nepal. I made friends. I met a friend, Sunita, who was my age, and we were like, let's go to Nepal. Let's go try to find your village.
Oh, her village. Go to find her village. And you at the time, so you were still in your teens. Were you even 20
Yeah,
at the
I'm
time?
18 now. I'm 18.
Gee, holy cow. So you're 18 and you've kind of ripped off the Band-Aid as far as being an explorer. So I think like the title of your life is like explorer, or maybe the lesson that we're already starting to look here is that you don't know what you want. You can't, you maybe don't even know your purpose until you explore and you find it finds you, you find it. And that's kind of what happens here is that you're exploring, and then it's presenting itself to you. Right. And you go and find that. So then what happens next?
So we go to Nepal. We trek for 3 or 4 days. We find my friend Sunita's village. We realize that her home had been converted into a Maoist rebel base camp.
Oh, scary.
It's
Yeah.
stunningly beautiful. I mean, there was an armistice at the time. The border had opened up. It was a time of peace. It was a good
Oh,
time.
it was okay. It was peaceful.
It was pretty peaceful. There were these vying sanctions for looking for power. But as you know, civil war, violence disproportionately affects women and children. Schools were shut down, homes had been taken over, families had separated and dissipated, and it was seeing the beauty of the people, the resilience of the people, but the struggle. It was just there was a struggle and this raw effects of what had happened, this war that had ravaged through the country. And I was walking across a dry riverbed, taking in stories, taking in hunger, taking in children being cold, and like just the human suffering of an impoverished, war-torn nation, and overwhelmed by it all. And I ended up walking across a dry riverbed where I saw children breaking rocks to survive, to live.
Basically, this is the equivalent of a quarry there.
Yeah. Just this dry riverbed quarry, and they were picking up rocks and carrying them on their heads, and then sitting by the riverside, the dry riverbed, just breaking them into hundreds of pieces. And they were breaking the rocks to sell in these huge body-sized bags, bigger than them, as gravel for construction sites. And children 3 and 4 and 7 and 8 and 10 years old were breaking rocks and selling them for $1 a day. And I just started to like ask a lot of questions. And I had this moment where I was just like, what have we done as a human family? Like, I felt so betrayed. I felt so sad. I felt hopeless. It was just like so wrong. Why do we live on a world like this? Like, why? Why?
So at that point, then you decide to invest the money that you do, the little bit of money that you do have. So you'd probably, I don't know, summer work or whatever.
Babysitting. What do
Babysitting, yeah.
girls in New Jersey do on a cul-de-sac?
So basically, you had a little bit of babysitting money still available, and that's when you decided to tell us what you did with that.
So I was like, okay, I don't want to live in a world where children are breaking rocks. I want to walk across this riverbed one day and I don't want to see a single child breaking rocks. I knew that the solution was more complicated than just backpacks and uniforms and sending kids to school. So I decided I was going to move to Nepal and work on this issue. And I asked my parents to wire transfer me my life savings of $5,000. It was babysitting money. And I bought a piece of land with the local community. That was really essential. I knew that we had to go about this with the local people as well. And they were amazing. I started to make friends and get to understand the local people. My co-founder's name is Tope. He's an orphan himself, and he wanted to come back from the being a migrant in India as well. So we start like putting our heads together and dreaming, and we ultimately decide that we're going to build a home and we're going to enroll children into school, and that this would help the situation.
But this is still is just a little. It's still a kid. You're at 18. You were still basically a kid.
Yeah.
But your thought was let's for X amount you're going to buy some land, and then are you able to build the school all with the same 5,000 and build it was everything 5,000, or or is this you almost build it from what you found from the land? Tell us, how did you build it?
So initially, all we have is that 5,000. We realized that in addition to just putting kids like child laborers into school and helping them, there were also children that didn't have food, that didn't have access to clean water, that didn't have family or a safe place to sleep at night. So we were like, well, we also need this home element in addition to putting kids into school and keeping them in their community. So the home idea that we established, it only got us to like the holes in the ground and the initial sketches of what we wanted to build. And then I had to go back to New Jersey and babysit.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you came all the way home and saved up more babysitting money. Mm-hmm.
And started doing garage sales, cupcake sales, like the whole thing. I was just trying to save up money and send it over to build the shell of the home. And then the local newspaper covered the story. And my local town in Mendham, New Jersey started to help. People came together, and I went back with enough money to finish up this beautiful home. And long story short, as you know, I became the mother to 50 plus children over time. We started with 2 and then 3 and then 5 and then 7 and then 9. And then we were enrolling children into school. We ultimately built our own school there, nestled into the foothills of the Himalayas, and that served.
Is it Coppola Valley? How do I say that?
Coppola Valley, yeah.
Yeah, and so wait, how long were you back in the U.S. before you went back?
Probably
how long did you stay?
4 or 5 months in order to finish off the home and have enough seed money to get back and start the organization. And in that process, I was babysitting for entrepreneurs and, different people who helped me write a business plan. I started going to the library and reading about the development sector, the nonprofit sector. I wanted to understand why it had failed. Like, why have development efforts failed, or have they? Like, why are orphanages these dark, terrible, dismal places? How do we improve on a model for education? So I wanted to kind of like study the issue in a way and go into it with a better understanding, so that I was kind of like young and just, we can do better than this. Come on, like, let's create a home that's bright yellow and filled with music and joy and Nepali aunties and uncles. And let's create a school that's nature-based and, beautiful and progressive. And at that time, I was just so young and so maybe naive. I saw things very clearly.
Well, just so optimistic too. When you've never even seen any. Sometimes it really helps to have kind of a blind optimism. It's like, well, of course we can do this. We can make this amazing. We can make it beautiful. We'll have great classes. It'll be comfortable. It'll be safe, right? And that's just what you were thinking, that, right? Mm-hmm. But you did also. It did come to fruition.
It
So
works.
did you ultimately, so over the years, more and more kids came in. How many years did you spend there?
So I've been living in Nepal for 17 years. I'm 35 now, and I've built a life there. I'm
Oh,
a
you've
mother.
stayed there the whole time, so you don't come back and forth a whole lot to the United States.
Well, I have to come back occasionally. I'm the CEO of our foundation. It's called BlinkNow. Um, and I've definitely come back and forth, but for the most part, I've lived there on the ground
Mhm.
and worked with the local people. We've got a team of 110 locals, and we're a team of social workers and teachers. We run a women's center. We run a health and medical clinic. We run a sustainability program where we grow our own food and raise animals. We have a school. We have an after school program. It's the whole essence of Blink Now is that we look to address how a child can thrive and grow in community, and how we serve orphans, victims of war, impoverished, vulnerable children, and flip the trajectory of their lives by having access to opportunity and education and healthcare and essentially basic human needs and rights.
And how? But so with through Blink Now or the Blink Now Foundation and through the home that you've built, or let's say the complex, I guess at this point, how many people have come through? How many kids have come through? How many families have you helped, or children have you
Oh,
helped?
thousands. I mean, we our school now has about 500 kids. We've got 166 students in college. We've supported, thousands of migrant families. We've, you know, there's not a single child left on the riverbed breaking rocks, which
Holy
is
power, yeah, powerful
amazing.
story. And do you love so this started out as this kind of nascent idea. We'll build a fun school. It'll be nice to really a massive organization. 100 over 100 people on your all. Is this all funded through Blink Now?
Yeah, so we have a
So the
nonprofit entity
nonprofit.
that
Okay.
funds our NGO based in Nepal.
And then you though, and you're there most of the time. Do you? I guess to you, so it is home. Like you've grown to love Nepal, and you live in the mountains, and it is a beautiful place.
And I was just warmly and humbly embraced by the people in the local community. And that was really essential as well. And yeah, I raised some children there, and there's other house parents now in addition to just me, obviously, but it's been an incredible journey, and it's worked. Like, you can take a kid breaking rocks or begging at a bus station or an orphan who's lost their entire family and turn them into a superstar, and an engineer, an architect, a teacher, a social worker, like a contributing amazing member of society. And that gives me so much hope, because I think that the world will change when children have a childhood and are loved and nurtured and cared for and have a chance to have an opportunity at an education. And it's been incredible, just, and such a gift to watch that and be so passionate about it and believe in it and work towards a world that's possible. Like, it's possible for us to do these things.
And that's what well, tell me about. Give us another story, or maybe you can tell us about Himma's story, or tell first. Let's talk about Himma.
So she was the very first rock breaker who I met, and she was standing on the riverbed. She was a rock breaker, and she was kind of like going through the garbage and wearing this tattered orange dress, and she just smiled at me and said, "Namaste, Didi." And in that moment, I was like, "Whoa, I can't do anything about this huge, massive problem." And we've got 152 million child laborers, 150 million orphans in the world. Like, I can't do anything about that, but maybe I could do something for Hima. And Hima was the first girl we put into school. And watching her life transform, she's now in college. She's amazing.
Where do these kids go to college? Do they go to college there in Asia, or they're there? Okay.
Yes. So they go to college regionally in Kathmandu, which is the capital where there's more universities. I have a student at Notre Dame. We have students in North America, in Europe as well. But for the most part, our students are staying within Nepal, continuing their education, and doing remarkable things.
How long did it take to learn? Is it Nepali as the language, or how long did it take to learn that?
It took probably a couple years, but full immersion, like fully being there, not even having the option to speak English.
Yeah.
So that really helped. And our team is all Nepali. We have a Nepal-based board. So I learned by survival. And
how many Americans are helping you? And this leads me to my question of how do we find, as Americans, how do we find something that it's even scratches the surface of what you did? So what is the population of Americans now that helps you?
Well, we have donors and supporters from all over the world. Mm-hmm. And in our donor database, I think we've got like 6,000 active people who are contributing to this.
Okay.
And I think my message is like, oh, you don't actually have to move 8,000 miles away and adopt 54 children. There's so much, unfortunately, to be done. I believe that education is the world's greatest equalizer and one of the most game-changing forces that there is in helping our human family wherever they are. And I also think there's something to be done everywhere in every community. So I just encourage people to get involved, take that step. Yeah, supporting BlinkNow is amazing. But just finding something philanthropic, finding something to sink your teeth into, to dig into an issue that you feel really passionate about is also equally important and gives us that sense of purpose and meaning and legacy and greater good for our world.
You know, one of the guests we've had here on Retire Sooner was Mitch Albom, who wrote Tuesdays with Morrie. I don't know if you remember that book.
Of course. Everybody knows that book.
Yeah, it's sold like 18, 19 million copies already. So hopefully between the mountain and the sky, it gets close to that. I hope it does. But the theme of that is really this powerful story of a man dying who effectively continued to give until his last day. Mm-hmm. And the theme of that is that the best part about living is giving, and that giving is living. And the number one trade or core pursuit of happy retirees, and I study the difference between happy and unhappy and the traits and the habits and the activities, is volunteering. It's the number one core pursuit of the happy camp. So it is cool. It is because of that giving that we feel so wonderful, and the purpose that it gives us. But I think the challenge, and I'll ask you kind of in another way, and again, and you've already kind of covered this a little bit, is that, you know, the thought of a 55-year-old American uprooting and doing something as bold and as almost extreme of what you did. You're an extreme example of being able to help so many people in a foreign land, 8,000 miles away. That is almost impossible for an American that's 55 who's lived in Jersey all their life to do. So how do you find something that even is remotely is impactful both on the population you're trying to help and you personally, to give you purpose? How do you think somebody can find that today?
Well, I mean, there's incredible volunteer opportunities, and I would argue that a 55-year-old would be a perfect candidate to come to Nepal and or work wherever they are to do something cool. Like, I mean, if you're able, like the beauty of being 19, 18 when this started is that I didn't have debt. I didn't have a mortgage. I didn't have children or responsibility in the sense, right? And so if you're a 55-year-old that finds yourself in that situation, awesome. But yeah, I think serving on boards is incredible. It's an incredible way to give. Um, Volunteering for an organization with a mission and a vision that you believe in um, is an incredible way to give. I believe in the power of philanthropy and channeling resources into a mission and a cause that you believe in. If you're not that person that wants to do the doing, and you do want to, kick your feet back, you've worked really hard, maybe you have grandchildren you want to raise, that's fine too. um, but yeah, there's so many cool nonprofit causes and mission-driven, purpose-driven organizations out there making real change at the helm of it all. So I think finding that thing that makes you tick. For me, it was children breaking rocks in a riverbed. For other people, it might be the whales or animal rights or plastic or the environment or homelessness. I mean, there's so many things.
So really, your thought is that it's not any harder. I mean, yes, you're a little unbridled when you're 18 and you don't have any your responsibility stack is pretty low, and you're 55, it's a higher stack. You might have kids and they're college and you've got a mortgage, but it doesn't mean that you can't explore any sort of thing that could end up something philanthropic that could lead you to your life's next great purpose. You just don't know what it is today. I think that's the message I'm getting from you, is that we don't know when it's going to hit us over the head, and we have to you've got to get in the river to explore, figure out your favorite part of it. It may take a little while, you get downstream, but I think it's about just getting involved, to your point.
Yeah, dig in, take the first step. Find that thing that you are passionate about, that injustice that you see, that thing that makes you, that change that you want to see in the world for your children, your grandchildren. How do you want to leave this world better? And then take that one step. Maybe it's contributing $5. Maybe it's calling up an organization and seeing where it's possible to volunteer. Like, it's more simple than I think you think. Because I think we get scared about the world and we give up. And like, oh, there's too many problems of the world. I don't even know where to start.
And the problems are too big for me to solve. But to your point, if you go back to the riverbed, you weren't going to solve the whole world's problems of Nepal. You were just going to help you were going to help Himma. And you were going to help this little girl in an orange dress that just was sadly breaking rocks in a dry riverbed. And then it bloomed and blossomed from there.
And it was radical generosity that helped it bloom and blossom. It wasn't me alone. It was the local community. It was people from around the world investing and believing and agreeing and aligning with that mission and working along my side. I was just one piece of the puzzle. It took thousands of people being like, I'll give her $10. I'll give her $5,000. I'll give, and then it took building a board of experts. Like, I knew that I couldn't do enough alone and that I needed a board of directors. I needed other experts in the field. I had to learn from other models. And it went from just me alone to a whole collective. And I think there's a huge power in that. Like, we are a human family. We can work to solve these problems together. It wasn't just me. It was so many people. I couldn't do what I do without my board, without mentors, without looking at other models and learning from other blueprints. So find that thing for yourself, I think. Everybody needs to just find... It's a collective of people doing good things for the world will change the world. And that when there's enough of us, the world will change.
No wonder you're CNN Hero of the Year. No wonder you got that. I vote for you. Can you tell us about Between the Mountain and the Sky? And it's a story about you as a mom. And just give our audience a sneak peek of that so that they'll go buy the book.
Thank you. It is a memoir. It is about a girl coming of age. I think it's a great book for young people. I think it's a great book for people to find their thing. But it's written from my perspective and kind of the issues and the stories that I saw in Nepal and what made me want to move there. And try to change things. It's about hope and keeping hope. It's a lot of love stories in there. And yeah, it's great. It's a good book. I hope people.
It's an amazing book. How long did it take? How long have you been working on it?
So, like I said at the beginning, I've been journaling and writing stories about the issues and the things that I saw since I was 18. But putting it all, and I diaried all through motherhood, all through growing up, being in my 20s and into my 30s. And when COVID hit, things got really quiet. And as you know, things got really scary. And I had a few months in North America where I was like, okay, if I don't do this now, I'm never going to do it. So put it all together. And
How did COVID impact Nepal and like a village in Nepal? How is that impacted by COVID?
it was devastating for Nepal. Nepal's economy relies entirely on remittances and migrant work and daily wage labor. And so Nepal, in the beginning of COVID, found its way to a food crisis and those living in poverty. I mean, this has hugely disproportionately affected the poor, those folks living on less than $1, $2.50 a day. So,
Did COVID itself, the virus, was that in itself devastating? Was all the other impact of the world, it ended up impacting food and the economy was worse? Which one was worse?
I think a good combination of both. There wasn't a lot of medical infrastructure to help those suffering from COVID. But I think overall in impoverished nations, we're going to be looking at a backslide at hunger, at education. We've had 300 million children in the world out of school for 18 months plus. And
300 million.
school is the safe haven for children. And we have a lot of children who will not go back to school. We've had increased rates of violence against women. We've had increased rates of child marriage. We've had increased rates of child labor because that's what happens when you pause an economy and things stop. So I think it was a combination of both. The Delta variant was very devastating for the South Asian continent in general, India. But it was so many things. Stopping the economy was also really harmful.
Gosh, it is. It's crazy. I didn't realize it was that many children, and that's worldwide, 300 million. So it's the whole the size of the population of the United States are kids that are not going to school.
Yeah, this has been,
and many of them may not go back.
Yeah, and it wasn't like kids in Nepal could hop on Zoom classroom. There's not electricity in homes. You don't have tablets. You don't have. We were writing packets and distributing them with food kits. School lunch, for example, is huge for children who struggle with food security.
So Maggie, did you legally adopt all the 50 plus kids? Was it legal or legally adopt, or did you?
Now, currently our organization as a collective has legal custody over the children, and we work in partnership with the women and children's welfare entities of the government. In the beginning, it was me, solely, but there was a lot of gray lines. International adoption had closed off. I didn't have Nepali citizenship. So we formed an NGO, and through that NGO, me and the NGO had custody of the children, and it's changed as Nepal put its policies and structures in place. But I became a mom because the kids started calling me mom. And that was unexpected. I was just like, oh, I'm going to help some kids. And then
you became a mom.
That took on a life of its own. Yeah.
Can you give me just out of curiosity, it's hard to even visualize what a normal, just a day of waking up in a village in Nepal is like. I mean, you don't have electricity, or do you? Where do you get food? What is your house like? Can you just give our audience a 1 minute overview of a day in the life in a village?
Yeah, well, we have power a lot of the time. We also have solar panels. We wake up in the morning. The aunties and uncles and kids are on breakfast duty. We all have breakfast together. There's kids like skateboarding by, biking, playing marbles in the side yard,
What
flying
do you
their
eat? What's
kites.
for breakfast? What do you eat?
Usually like oatmeal, or there's this Nepali, South Asian cereal called suji, bananas, fruit. And then the kids get ready to go to school, and it's this madness of school uniforms and combing of hair and brushing of teeth. And then the kids go to our school, and kids from the whole community come in for the school. The school is absolutely beautiful. Yeah, and at night in the evening they come back. They all do their homework. It's kind of just a regular family, though, I would say.
Like a giant family, though. How
A
many?
regular giant family, just a family. Like that was how it was designed, was to be a family and a commune of sorts, but everybody together, but a childhood just like any other childhood.
It sounds magical. It almost sounds like it should
is.
be. It sounds magical. It sounds like the next Disney film, actually.
I always say it's where you would want your child to be raised. It's where you'd want your kid to go to school, your little brother, your little sister. It's about, I think, the next era of development and changing of the world will be achieving equality. You know, we can't just keep going and building schools. We can't just keep going and like scratching the surface. We have to go deeper, and we have to look at quality. We have to create hospitals that you'd want your mother to go to. We have to create schools that you'd want your child to go to, because every child deserves quality standards.
Can you tell the audience just a little bit about BlinkNow?
So the BlinkNow Foundation has a vision of creating a world where every child is safe and educated and loved. And we set out to empower Nepal's children. And through empowering children, we believe that we can change the world. And we consult with other organizations as well who want to do this work, and are a place for every child in the region to come to when they've lost everything. Yeah.
And BlinkNow, we could just find online, and we can support your organization just through that, right?
Please. I
Yeah.
love that. BlinkNow.org, or anyone can email me, Maggie@blinknow.org. If you do want to get involved, if you want to work with children, if you want to contribute in any way, reach out. We'd love that. And you can follow us on social media too. We're all over the social media.
What is your Instagram handle?
I'm Maggie Doyne, and our organization is on as BlinkNow, BlinkNow.org.
And I think an inspiration here to explore for our audience is to figure you don't have to go do something as dramatic and life-changing as Maggie did. But I think if we understand that we will find, if we're looking for it and we're open to it, then we will find it and it will find us. And that is that purpose we're all searching for, is that next level of what can we give to make life better for all of us. So I think you helped us with that today, Maggie. So thank you.